kind of weird being filmed doing things.
I know, yeah, it's quite uncomfortable, isn't it? Welcome back. It's another sunny day here in West Otago. I brought you guys here. We were going to do a hernia repair in a calf, but the hernia is also pretty infected. We realised that when we got here. We're going to try that on a long course of antibiotics before we go in and do surgery. So change of plan there, but we do have an infected eye, a badly infected eye, which we're going to take out. And when I say we, I mean my colleague Esther. There's actually heaps of us here. There's me, another vet Esther, a vet tech Emily, and a student Ginner. We thought we'd need plenty, and we had plenty of spare capacity at the practice to come and do that hernia repair. 4 people for an enucleation, that is taking the eye out. It's probably slightly overkill, but we're here now and it shouldn't take too long. So we'll get some footage of that. First, just got to treat that calf with the infected navel. That'll be going on to at least a week of penicillin and some anti-inflammatories every other day, just to try and calm that infection down, like I say, before we go out and do any surgery. Sorry, Emily, I'll try not to stab you.
That would be great. The intermuscular.
This one will be. It's quite a good head veil, this, isn't it? So you can see that calf. You can see that swelling there. So that'd be a hernia and an infection on top of that. There's some pus. We had some down here, you see that? So that's out that navel, that umbilicus, the belly button. All these different words for the same thing. Infections do tend to make hernias more likely. And this calf was treated for a previous infection, so that's probably played some role in it. You can get hernias without infection, and likewise you can get infections that don't lead to hernias, but sometimes they do read the textbook. There you go, there's a man who knows to do it properly. So there we go. She's obviously a bit uncomfortable, resents having the halter on, but we'll try not to upset her too much. You can see there's been quite a lot of discharge, but you see it's crusty, and you can even see something called hypopyon there. I'm not going to touch her eye just to not stress her out too much, but you can see it's obviously very cloudy, the eye, but there's actually pus and white blood cells, all that normal crud you'd get in an abscess. It's sort of sunken to the bottom of her eyeball. And that infection's so bad, we're just going to take the eye out, we decided. Because the pain of her having to deal with that for a prolonged period is probably going to be more than or equal to the pain of surgery. The surgery's pretty gory. This isn't one for pre-watershed, is it? Right, you tell me where to be or where not to be.
Oh no, I'm okay. Good girl. Good girl. I know, yeah.
This is where she sees the camera and goes, fuck me.
You don't like looking at it? Yeah, good girl. No, you're good. Just go in where I've already localed, which just makes life a bit easier. So that it doesn't go so bendy.
So yeah, so Esther's going to use that long, that's actually a spinal needle, isn't it, Esther?
Yes, this is a spinal needle. It's got a wee pipette in the centre that kind of helps keep it strong. So
she's going to use that needle, pretty fearsome looking, to get the local, and she's bent it, you see that, to go with the curve of the eye socket. So yeah, so that curved spinal needle is going to go in through past the eye to the base of the eye socket where there's that big optic nerve. Pretty sure it's the optic nerve.
Yes, optic nerve.
And the idea is that's going to numb the whole eye even better. Esther's put in lots of blocks around the eye. I'll talk those in the voiceover because that means I won't have to try and remember them now. But that includes a ring block, but there's also some local going right in the base of the eye. Obviously there's a bit of a tug there, so she's not perfectly still, but you can see Esther's being very gentle and just advancing that carefully. I'll take that starlight. And that's just some more local going in that base of the eye. Again, the whole idea is this animal's not going to feel it at all. So you've got some longer term anti-inflammatory on board as well for pain relief. but this is going to numb her in the short term. There you go.
I'm doing
Perfect.
4-point blocks, so I do that in 4 spots. So if you want to, can you just get more local for me? And put it on the other side as well. Just ensuring that I get
Do you need the stylet at all?
full
You have?
coverage. No, it's not
Okay.
actually. Now that it's not too bad without the stylet. Sometimes they get a bit more bent, then you can put the stylet back in, but that one's okay.
I've forgotten that you've worked with a YouTube vet, haven't you, Esther? Famous Enoch. I think his handle's just Enoch the cow vet.
Yeah,
something
Enoch
like that.
Bergman.
That's it. I must meet him one day because he sounds like a character.
Crazy American, got lost in Australia. So you notice she's not really reacting when I'm going in through the skin, and that's because I've already put a ring block all the way around the top. All this has got local in it. She can't really feel this needle going in, which is why you can see she barely moves when it goes through the skin.
Yeah, she has got the nose clamps on there. That's just a bit like a twitch. If you guys have horses, it's very similar to a twitch idea. It's just essentially it's a little bit of it's a point you squeeze and they listen to. You know, it's a bit like grabbing a child by the ear, I would say, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just to keep her safe while we're wielding this needle by her eye.
Yeah, I don't want her to injure me, and I don't want her to injure herself. She's had a bit of a sedation, she's feeling nice and chill, and that's a good safety mechanism so I don't get smacked in the face.
That as well.
She doesn't get a needle in the eye. So this is, yeah, the final of the 4-point block, that it originally named for going in from the 4 angles of the eye to get around to the back to the optic nerve. She's had a lot of local now, so she shouldn't be able to feel anything.
Tremendous. And you've got Ginner, student on the ropes. I've just realised of the 4 vet staff here, we've got 1 Kiwi, we've got an Australian, we've got an American, and a Brit. So it's a very cosmopolitan team. Congratulations, guys. Ginner's got a firm hold of the ropes there, not letting go of those, are you, Ginner?
Such a really good hard hold, you know. Alright.
Seems to be doing the trick anyway.
I feel like I'm making this way more sappy than I normally do.
It's because you're on camera.
I know, I've never had such an audience. It's just me.
Oh, girl. Again, one of the best things about working for another practice is picking often just little things up. So like having the local on a gun, fantastic innovation, saves a lot of time, would be really useful in a C-section. And come to think of it, that's what I did in my very first practice, but it's just something I've lost along the way. And then also having these swabs on hand in sort of hibby, so that's hibby scrub, diluted down. These are swabs, but had cotton balls, just a really handy thing rather than trying to find a bucket of water and dilute some hibby out and then try and find some cotton wool from somewhere. You've just got this little pot, they're ready to go. So Ginner, where are you from originally?
From California.
California, so how did you end up in beautiful New Zealand?
Ended up going to Massey University in New Zealand.
Nice.
Got stuck here in lockdown, so I've been in full enjoyment of everything New
So
Zealand.
you've not been home, we were saying this the other day, you've not been home for like 2 years?
Almost 3.
Almost 3. Bloody hell. So was that your first year at uni as well? Was the first year of lockdown?
Yeah, I got to see normal New Zealand for a month and then it was locked down.
Oh, grim.
Right. So I'm stitching just the eyelids together, and then this isn't going to stay in there, this is going to get cut out of her, so the suture line doesn't really matter too much. But
So this is just slightly rough and ready sutures, although your rough and ready is like my pristine.
rough and ready, just to the start.
So you're just going to close those eyelids,
the eyelids, yeah.
just to expedite that eye coming out.
So that eye does look quite fat and swollen. Don't worry, that's just the local anaesthetic sitting under the skin. This girl got plenty of local anaesthetic in the form of a corneal nerve block, much like we would use if we were disbudding or dehorning cattle. B, local infiltration in the form of a ring block, that's fairly descriptive. And C, a 4-point retro bulbar block, which is the one Esther used the curved spinal needle for, putting the local behind the bulb of the eye. She's also had a touch of sedation, that's the cow, not Esther, in the form of xylazine. Not enough to knock her down, but enough to take the edge off and chill her out. A common theme among large animal vets I meet is that they get more and more comfortable with sedation as their careers progress. Basically, the more times you've been run over or kicked by one of your patients, the more likely you are to want to sedate the next one. I wonder if doctors feel the same way. Anyway, once we have this eye extracted and the cow sewn back up, we're going to dissect out that eye to show you the extent of the damage, and also it's a real life anatomy lesson if you're into that sort of thing. Stay tuned for that.
It's maybe a slight overkill, isn't it, Emily, having 4 of us here?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't overkill for the hernia, I think,
No.
because that would have been a
That would have been a bit fun.
bit more involved.
Around this.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Em. More interesting things at the moment. We'll cut back to the studio.
Yeah.
See that?
I
No,
said
no
that
pun intended. So Esther's she's making a cut there. She's gonna remove the eye, and then the margins of the skin she's left is what she's gonna sew back together.
Yeah.
And cows cope remarkably well with one eye. They learn to live with sort of half sight very well. But this cow's a good candidate. We were just talking about this before. She's a young animal. I think she's 2020.
Yeah.
So she's only 2 years old. She's in good body condition. She's otherwise healthy. She's just got this really sore, very badly infected eye. So by taking out this enucleation, we're hopefully bringing about a swift resolution to the issue, and she can go on to live the rest of her productive life pretty well. And you can see, just going back to the sedation, having the halter and the nose clamps on and plenty of local, you can see how close Esther has to get there. Very up close and personal.
Yeah, and she's nice and comfortable and calm, which is what I want.
Yeah, because if she wasn't, you're in, as you said before, it'd be very easy for her to swing her head and topple you.
Yeah.
With a blade in your hand. It's just a lot of sharp things.
Don't want to lose my finger.
No, exactly. Oh, just a bit of a burp there. This isn't the most refined surgery in the world. Effectively, you cut that skin and you try and hollow out the eye socket. So you're trying to take basically, it's not just the eyeball, is it, Esther? You're trying to take all the muscle and all the other sort of, as much stuff, as much tissue as you can, really.
Yeah.
And there's a surprising amount. Oh, a bit of
They
spurter.
bleed a lot.
They bleed a lot, yes. Just on cue, there's a bit of a spurter.
Yeah.
This is quite a common surgery. Esther thinks it's probably the commonest surgery she does in large animal, and used to do quite a lot for the same reason in Australia, but normally it wouldn't be for an infection, it would be for something called a cancer eye. I think I've done a video on that before, but that's normally a squamous cell carcinoma of the third eyelid, normally, aren't they?
Yeah,
and or eye.
Be sclera,
Yeah. So that's a nasty growth, nasty tumour, and you see a lot of it in Australia and seemingly in New Zealand. I presume that's because the ozone layer is knackered here. I've forgotten that. Not only has Esther worked with Enoch, her boyfriend is already a star of the channel. Well, I'm not sure how willing it was.
I'm more of a star now.
Yeah.
I'm doing surgery, he's just farming.
Hopefully you'll watch this. And there'll be some.
I didn't just say that.
So yeah, Fraser, who kindly had me tag along on those lambing beats, is Esther's boyfriend, but he has definitely been upstaged here. I think that's fair enough to say. He's gonna have to pull something out the bag. So Esther's just right there at the base. It's almost like a cone. If you imagine that opening of the eye is like the base of a cone. The deeper you go, it sort of reaches a tip, and S is just
Almost there.
cutting at that tip. There's a couple of big vessels and there's the optic nerve. But that's why she was using that big, long, curved spinal needle to get to the bottom of that, so she could get her local all the way down here. It requires some acrobatics, stretching, because it is awkward.
Almost there. Oh, such a nice day to go sunbathing. Yeah, it's kind of like an ice cream.
Is it? Exactly. There you go.
And the
There's the
eyes
eyeball.
in there, we can cut into it later, and you can see how much extra tissue I've got out. These are the muscles there, that one there, that help move the eye around. But we can have a look at that later. Let's sort her out.
There will be quite a lot of bleeding. That's just an inherent part of the surgery. There's some big vessels in there.
So I don't know if you want to see this, but
Oh yeah.
you can see that's all bone,
Yeah.
and that's fatty tissue at the back of the eye socket.
Yeah. Might sound like a broken record, but how well that local has worked. She's just stood there. If she could feel even a scratch of that, she'd be very, very unhappy. And if anyone's interested, those will be cruciates. Cruciate suture pattern.
Just because it'll swell a lot after surgery, and so these are pressure relieving sutures.
It's something you do a lot as a vet student, go out with vets, but actually as a vet, you suddenly stop doing it. So it's actually a really useful thing to do, to see, because you can go 10 years, you suppose you could go 10 years without going out with another vet. For me, certainly, I will happily admit I've never been a natural surgeon. And Esther is a mixed vet, so Esther does plenty of small animal medicine and surgery as well. So I think actually, although I've never been that interested in continuing on with the small animal stuff after uni, there's a definite benefit for your surgical skills, because you do farm animal surgery so much less often than you would with smalls. And so if you're constantly castrating dogs or doing other sort of small animal surgery things, other small animal ops, you just get that constant sort of exposure. Your tissue handling, your instrument handling becomes that much better, and that's something definitely that I was slower on out of the starting blocks, out of the womb as well, but out the starting blocks after graduation, because I probably just was lazy and didn't want to do any small animal surgery. Saying that, it does mean I would have had to see lots of itchy dogs and vomiting cats, so I think it's a fair trade-off.
Yeah, I was on call last night seeing vomiting dogs.
There you go. While Esther's finishing that up, I'll just show you this cow, because she's a dairy cow. We've got to worry about milk withholds. Emily's sprayed her backside as red as she possibly can, just to make sure it's really obvious when she goes in the parlour that she's under milk withhold, so her milk can't enter the bulk tank. It'll have to be binned.
Cool.
Very tidy.
Pretty happy with that.
Very tidy. So just the only thing she's got left to get is some antibiotics
Some blue spray on
and
her.
some topical antibiotics. That's the most important thing of the whole. So the funny thing is, that's the thing she's reacted to most. I bet it's because of the sound.
Scary. Are you happy with that though? Looks good.
I would be very happy. There you go. There's a thumbnail. Good stuff. Right. Well.
All right.
She just needs some injectable antibiotics, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And she can go.
You gonna go?
She will once she sees it. And problem is she can't see that she's on. There you go, girl. Good girl. What?
Good girlie.
Still a bit doped, I think. She's just
Yeah.
just pleasantly.
Yeah. She's pretty relaxed. Good girl.
So before we go, just for interest, because I know some of you out there are real sick people, we're going to cut that eye open and just show you the infection that's in there.
Alrighty, so that's where just that rough suture to stitch it together. And cut across this. Really hard to... That's the front of the eyeball, and you can see that's all pus and looks awful in there. We've got some blood. All that kind of rim is blood moving in to try and fight the infection, but a bit, you know, this one maybe could heal with intensive treatment, but in a cow situation where they're not going to get intensive treatment, it's better for her, less painful to get it out, and she'll be better in a few days from her surgery. That's the optic nerve, which we could see before. You can actually even see the tiny little, all the nerve fibres in there.
Might be able to see that.
Might be able to see it. Maybe
Trust
not.
us, they're there.
Trust us, they're there, yeah. Pop this eyeball. So
that's the vitreous.
yes, vitreous.
There you go, vitreous humour at the back. That's that jelly stuff. So there's actually two chambers to the eye. There's the big one at the back's got the vitreous humour, and then the one at the front, which has got the lens in between it, which is the aqueous humour.
This is the back of the eye, this whole black inkiness, and you can see there that beautiful colouring of the fundus of the eye, which is quite cool. So that's all the chamber at the back, and then there's a chamber at the front. So this is that's the fundus, that's the back of the eye. This is the chamber at the back with all that blackness in it. And then this kind of whitey bit here is where the lens sits. And then we move into our anterior chamber. So the chamber at the front, and you can see how that retina's all thickened. You can barely see through it. That would normally be, you know, clear. That's all filled with inflammatory infectious cells. This here is the lens, which is very cool, and you might be able to see, I can pop it over. Right. See how it magnifies that blood on my finger compared to when it's off. It's quite cool.
So that eye, clearly very unhealthy, wanted to come out. That cow shouldn't look back now, touch wood. The only thing she's going to get more is some injectable antibiotics, and then she's free to go.